Mr. Prithviraj Dasgupta also on the call. So Prithviraj has been instrumental in bringing, Dr. Bajaj and Raghavendra into this program. So just wanted to acknowledge that. And Sonia Das is also on the call. So I think I'm just looking to see if Dr. Bajaj has joined or not. Kindly leave me unmuted so that I can reach out to you.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Prithviraj, would you know if Dr. Bajaj is joining shortly? You need to unmute Prithviraj as well.
Prithviraj. What is the name? Prithviraj?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just doing one thing. Just give me a moment.
And Mr. Raghavendra Prasad, maybe you should unmute him as well, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Well, good morning, and good afternoon. This is a great initiative. I had a word with Dr. Sachin Bajaj right before this call was to start, and he confirmed that he is getting on it. As you can appreciate, it's a chaotic time for all the doctors right now. So, we'll just give him a few moments. In the meantime, Raghavendra is already on the call. So, Raghavendra, why don't you get started and give an overview of the tremendous work you're doing with Step One, with all the different state governments and your volunteer of doctors and other volunteers. And then as Dr. Sachin Bajaj joins in, then he can join you.
Sure. Yeah, I have a few slides. Actually, me and Sachin have coordinated on the slides. So where I will go first and he will pitch in for his topics. We have actually combined the session into one set of slides. That's okay. So I'll go ahead and share if sharing permission can be given for me. And while that's happening, I would like to thank Prithviraj for.
I will just mute all because a lot of audience is there, and then one by one we can unmute. So Raghavendra Prasad, you can unmute yourself. Okay, sorry. So you can, yeah. So go ahead. Yeah. Okay. So give me a moment. Shall I introduce? Because I am prepared with your introduction. So let me introduce you properly to all the people here, because we have a lot of faculties from different 4 different colleges have joined, and we would definitely like to know your introduction. So just give me a moment, and I will share a little introduction of yours. So. Okay, visible to everyone, is it? Able to present, yeah? Okay, yes?
Yes,
yeah, thank you.
They're able to see.
Yeah, thank you. So, Mr. Raghavendra Prasad is basically the founder of Project Step One, and Step One is a non-profit volunteer organization helping India fighting COVID and providing free telemedicine access to COVID-affected citizens in India. He is an active angel investor and advisor for many startups. His primary interests are in technologies and business models which can help rural India better integrate with the rest of the India and global economy. He has also co-founded QuickWell, which is acquired by Practo, a pioneer in digital healthcare in India, which was acquired by Practo in 2015, actually. So Raghavendra has over 20 years of experience in the software industry, a computer science graduate from MS Ramaya Institute of Technology, Bangalore. He started his career as a programmer, working on many missions, critical global products. And the most important point and why we are all here is because he loves solving problems, people's problem using technology, and has spent most of his career doing that. He has a keen eye for spotting trends and new innovations to solve problems, and has launched over a dozen global products and has over a dozen international patents to his name. So thank you very much for joining us, and you are welcome. Now you can start your presentation, Raghavendra.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Dr. Seema, and thanks, Prithviraj, for inviting me. And I would like to have the ability to share my slides so that I can.
Now you can?
Yes, I can. So we're all in the middle of the pandemic, and Project Step One actually was not an initiative which was planned. None of us thought we would have ever had to do it, and none of us, frankly, when we were starting off, thought even 1 year after, or more than 1 year after we started it, we'll still be continuing to talk about it. Because when we started it, which was in March last year, the pandemic was just upon us. Nobody knew that how this is going to happen. Even we were hoping that or at least we never thought it's going to last so long. So we knew a bunch of people from the healthcare system as well as from the startup system. We knew that there is going to be a lot of need for people to to access doctors, and there should be an easy way for us to access doctors. At the same time, we knew that we had the technology skills to help the government to be able to do that. And the government by itself will struggle because there are so many things the government would have to do. As we are seeing, all of us are struggling, including the government right now, right? So what we thought was we will put together a coalition of people who will volunteer their time and with and try to solve the problems of providing easy access to doctors. And obviously, most doctors would be hesitant to step out of their homes because even March last year, there was a lot of fear. Actually, there was more fear than reality. Actually, the reality right now is more scarier than the fear back then. But there was a lot of fear, and we thought the best way to tap into to the help that they were willing to provide was if we were to get people to stay at home but still help and be part of the process. So I'll go to the first slide, which talks a little bit about the problem that we are trying to solve. For some reason, okay, yeah. So the shortage of healthcare and other staff is really the problem that we are solving, where there is a huge need for patients, both who are feeling like they have COVID-like symptoms, or people who are turning positive, or people who have turned positive who are at home but want help because they want to know, they're anxious. They want to know if they are getting serious, if they have to, get more help, what is the medicine. So there is a real shortage of that, right? And there is also a huge issue that the people who are testing positive, what we have seen is they are having either two extreme type of reactions. One is they go about their business as if nothing happened, right? I'm positive, actually positive, I got a positive report, but okay, let me go buy vegetables and come, or let me go meet my friends and come, right? That's a very extreme reaction. The other extreme reaction is they utterly panic, try to rush to a hospital, or start posting for help on social media, that they need help and things like that. Both are extreme reactions, right? But what we have seen is when people talk to a proper healthcare professional and based on their symptoms and comorbidities actually gives the proper response, their reactions become moderated. And that's essentially what is the problem that we are trying to, or that's the solution we are bringing. But it's not enough to keep this, have this problem. It's actually very important to also work with the government, right? And because the government is actually leading the effort in fighting against the COVID, right? And they have the highest, both the accountability as well as the responsibility. And whatever work that we can do would be as in helping the governments to deal with this. And it's not enough for government to give them just technology, because they have no expertise nor the ability to take this technology and adopt it. So what we have done is provided a system. I'll go to the next set, where we have built a technology platform as well as a large volunteer network of doctors, nurses, paramedics, and other non-medical people who can at any point of time come and augment the government resources. And we have built this platform so that it can scale based on the surge and demands of the pandemic. As well as over time, since we have existed for more than a year now, we have built proven processes and systems, which actually is something that we, in addition to providing technology and people, we also help the government with the right processes, the right protocols, which they can deploy in fighting COVID. So to a certain extent, we are helping people, helping governments with the know-how as how to fight COVID, because we have done this over a year, and we have done this in many states. So we basically augment the government resources with trained volunteers. And the key thing for us is we also go from problem to operational scale in a few days. So this is essentially what we do. So what are the areas in which we work, in which we help the government? We have the complete solution set for COVID management. Shuchin, has Shuchin joined? Dr. Shuchin?
Let me check. You see, sorry, I'm speaking, but the thing is that we have 100 of capacity, though we are streaming this on Facebook as well. And it might be possible that Sachin will not be able to join because it's already full. So I'll have to just check.
Okay.
Yeah, just if Samiran can let me know that he has already joined or he is not able to join, then I'll have to remove some sort of someone to get him in because we are full.
Okay. Should I continue while
I think
you are trying to get Shuchin in? And once Shuchin comes in, you can basically alert me, and I'll hand over the few things. I can continue. I can do this while we are waiting for Shuchin.
So I will request Samiran to please let me know and that I can remove someone and then he can join.
Actually, right now it says 99 participants, so Shuchin should be able to get in. You may have to ask him to okay, Samiran is asking to be unmuted.
Oh.
Yes, hi, Dr. Seema. Sachin was unable to join because of the 100 cap. I'm dropping myself out. Please let him in, okay? He'll be joining any moment, and I'll join on Facebook. You can send me the link. I'll join there. But please allow Sachin in. I'll just drop out.
Sure. And, thank you, Samiran.
Samiran,
I'm sharing the link.
Yeah, you can also mention to Shuchin to resend his request, because what happens is if the participants are full, then the request is lost. So you'll have to log off and resend his request.
I send the Facebook link as well, just in case. And
Okay, I'll continue. So I was basically saying, what if you were to imagine what we are like a Uber-like system where on one hand we have people who need help, which are the COVID-affected citizens. We get these people through government helplines who are these people are calling government helplines, or they're turning positive and that data is going centrally to the government and they are giving us the data at real time, or in batch of 30 minutes or an hour. So that is the people who need help. The people who provide help are the people are like Uber drivers, right? They are having, they are doctors. They are having our app and turning on their availability and saying, I am available now. I can help. I can help people. So send me work or send me the details of the people who need help. And we send them the work, and they finish that and enter all the data and details. Like, for example, if they speak to a person who is in emergency, then they say, this is person is in emergency, you need to immediately shift him. So we work so we have volunteers who basically work with the government ambulance, if the government ambulance system is available, or get them, or if it's not available, we work with whatever ambulance is available and shift them out. We if let's say they call and say they want medicines at home, we try to work with the government to make sure that they medicines are sent. So we try to help the people in whatever they can. But the key thing is we are very much connected with the government system, right? So we tap into the government system wherever possible, which till till say a couple of weeks back was working fine, right? But now the government system is really not working, right? Because there is a scarcity for resources. And now we are working with as many on-ground NGOs and other capacity building organizations that are working to build on-ground capacity in terms of oxygen cylinders or oxygen concentrators or oxygen banks, which are being created in, for example, in Indrapuram in Delhi. There's a Gurudwara which has created an oxygen bank where people can go and get oxygen. So, we're working with all this and giving these options to the users or to the citizens who are faced with issues, and diverting them there. So that is essentially what we do. So what are all the ways that we are helping citizens? When can citizens help us? So that is this. We actually are working with people who are pre-COVID, or they're not yet tested positive. They may be having symptoms, or they may be belonging to a household which is suffering from COVID, and that itself brings a lot of challenges by itself. Then people who are positive we are helping, and people who are also recovered from COVID. There is a lot of issues with respect to something called as long COVID. So we help people with that as well. So and all of these services are provided for free to the citizens as well as to the government. We don't take any money as a matter of principle from anyone. We are funded by grants and CSR funds, and we are able to do this. And we are so what are the things that we do? We help people while we with if they have having COVID like symptoms. Is it COVID? Should they actually go to get it tested or not? Because initially when we started, test kits were scarce. So we had to make sure that only the people who really needed to be tested should be tested, right? But now we, yeah, of course, now even now actually there is an issue because even though test kits is not the issue, testing turnaround time is an issue, right? Test results take too long to come. So making sure that the people's treatment starts early, even before they wait for test results, has become important. Mental health counseling is a very important aspect of what we do. COVID positive triaging, I think I talked about, how we help people as soon as they turn positive about what they should do. And this has become very, very important now, because in this situation, the chances are that most people won't get a hospital, right? So the hospital, so they should start treatment at home. In fact, Dr. Shuchin actually finished a training of all the doctor volunteers day before yesterday actually, where we are actually starting prescribing medicines to avoid breathlessness, and which are proven to reduce the number of people and reduce the symptoms from worsening very early. And that's something that we have started doing, because the challenge for us is how can we keep people at home without actually requiring hospitalization, because the hospital system is already stressed, right? There is no way that we right now at this point of time we have a huge gap in capacity of hospitals compared to the people who need them. So so keeping people at home and keeping them safe and starting treatment at home is very, very important. At the same time, large number of people at home, we need to monitor them. We need to help them to know that their symptoms are escalating, because the way the desaturation happens or the lack of oxygen happens in COVID patients is, they actually go into a happy state. They won't realize, it's called happy hypoxia. They won't even realize that, their oxygen is going down or something wrong is going to happen to them. And it's very important that we monitor them throughout this period. We run helplines where people can call whenever they feel.
Sorry to intervene, but Dr. Sachin has joined, just for your information.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Seema.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just so we do all these plus we also help with plasma donor and recipient management, which actually Dr. Shuchin will talk about more, but I'll now ask Dr. Shuchin to take over the rest of the slide, if he's unmuted.
I cannot see him in the list, by the way.
Okay.
Is he unmuted? Just give me a moment.
Yeah, I see him. He has his hands raised, so you should be able to find him.
Okay, just give me a moment.
Sure. Don't search for doctor, because he doesn't have that prefix. He just, his name says Shuchin Bajaj. Okay.
So he is there by name of, what is his? Okay, yeah, now Shuchin I can see Bajaj. Him. Yeah, I can see him. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. My name has a difficult spelling. I understand that. Yeah.
So welcome. And would you like to continue this presentation, or I should give you a little introduction of yours, because we have all faculties from different colleges?
No, it's fine. It's fine. I don't really need any introduction. So
we'll do this later.
I don't do much worth of an introduction. So I'll just try and talk about what Step One is trying to do, and what we as volunteers at Step One are trying to do. And any of you can join and do the same work that we are all doing. So we all need volunteers, more and more volunteers every day, because the workload is increasing, the cases are increasing, everybody is struggling to find beds, find oxygen, find plasma, find medicines. So it's a big scramble for everyone. So I hope that after this presentation you'll all come and sign up and spend at least 2-3 hours every day on helping other people, because we are all fortunate enough, I am sure, that we can spend some time to help others. So till the time, we at Step One have helped more than 10 million uh, citizens with our teleconsultations, with our plasma, with our home isolation management systems, with our positive triaging and our mental health counseling, as Raghavendra ji has already talked to you about. We are live in almost 24 states and cities now, and we'll be going live in 3 more very, very quickly. From North Punjab and Haryana and Himachal in the north to Pondicherry in the south, we are working with all state governments, from Arunachal in the east to Mumbai in the west. So we help and work with all state governments, and wherever you are in India or even outside India, you can come and work with us, because it's all remote, it's all from the comfort of your home, and you can use just your simple mobile phone to help these COVID patients. Can I have the next slide, please, Dax?
Yeah. Should we skip these slides in the interest of time and go directly, or should we maybe quickly go through them?
Yeah, you can go through them. I think, and then I'll talk about plasma. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So the the way people reach us are through the state helplines. I think I spoke to you about. So we have multiple helplines across the country, and most of these helplines are government helplines. Typically, they are 104, which is the government helpline. So we take over the COVID management on this or specific things in these helplines and direct people towards us. And this is something that this is what we started with in Delhi. The 1-800-111-747 is the COVID helpline, which is run by us, and it is run by volunteers sitting from their homes, taking calls and helping people. Similarly, we do outcalling a lot. We get the list of all COVID patients from the government. Everyone whose data is whose reports are turning positive, that's sent to ICMR, and we get data from there. And we queue these people, and we do get our doctors and volunteers to call them out. So we have a system where we used to initially have everyone being spoken to by a doctor, but now obviously we are running short of doctors, so we are using medical students a lot and paramedics a lot, as well as we are using trained non-medical people. So anyone with good communication skills can join us. We take them through an hour's training where they will know exactly what they need to do, how they need to counsel, and we will also give them resources on how they can bring further help to the patients. And if the patient actually requires to speak to a doctor, because there may be some clinical decision to be taken, that gets escalated to a doctor. So we are kind of built like a 3-level system. Similarly, I'll skip this, exactly the same what we do for home isolation monitoring. Over to you, Shuchin, to talk about plasma. This is a very important thing, especially in these days. So Shuchin, over to you. Shuchin, over to you.
Is he there?
His name, yeah, he's there. Oh, he says, please unmute me. Is he muted again?
I guess it's by default happening. What is this? Okay, just what should I write? SUCH?
Yeah, SUCH. SHUCH. Shuchin. SHUCH.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much once again. It's a bit of a struggle.
I'm so sorry for that because I'm very new into Zoom, so we don't use Zoom actually.
No worries. I wish we could do some of this in actual physical meetings, but we can't. Yeah. So, so any of you, if you have suffered from COVID in the last 4 or 5 months, say from the beginning of 2021, or you know anyone who's suffered from COVID, we all urge you to proselytize plasma donation. If you yourself have suffered, please go and help somebody, because we should all remember the time we tend to forget our bad times very quickly, and we tend to fend for ourselves. Just remember when you were suffering, or if somebody in your family or friends were suffering, how panicked you were. You just wanted that somebody should come and help me. Why are people not helping me? Why am I not able to talk to a doctor? Why am I not getting a bed? Why is no one donating a plasma for me? Why do I have to keep running after people and stand in lines? So if somebody were to come up and donate plasma themselves voluntarily, we would not be in such a situation. Just Delhi alone has had more than 10 lakh cases, right? And more than 9,40,000 of them have recovered. So if 9,40,000 of them have recovered, at least 2 to 3 lakhs will be eligible as plasma donors, right? Every day we are seeing 25,000 cases just in Delhi now. But if we are looking for even one plasma donor, we have to struggle that, how do we find even one plasma donor? So this is something that is very concerning for all of us. So if we can all go and donate plasma, all this situation will be very easily resolved. So please come forward if you've ever been tested positive for COVID from January onwards. We can also try for December, but certainly January onwards, and you have been symptom free for the last 14 days, or you were detected more than 28 days ago, then you are eligible to come and donate if you are between 18 to 60 years and you weigh more than 50 kilos. In ladies, the only extra condition is that you should never have been pregnant in your life, right? Let alone deliver a baby. You should never have been pregnant in your life, because once you become pregnant, you develop some, in 10% of the people, you develop HLA antibodies within your own system, which can actually be harmful to someone if given to that person. Women who have ever been pregnant in their lives. If your blood pressure is uncontrolled, if you have chronic heart or lung disease, or if you have been given plasma yourself, right? If you receive plasma yourself, then you are not able to donate plasma. So once you feel that you are clearing all these conditions, that you are between 18 to 60 years, more than 50 kilos, have never been pregnant in your life, and you recovered from COVID in the last 4 to 5 months, please call us. We will arrange for your transport to and from the ILBS Plasma Bank. The ILBS Plasma Bank is in South Delhi in Vasant Kunj. It is a COVID-free facility. There are no COVID patients there. So we will arrange a car for you to go and come back. If you don't want to go in somebody else's car, we'll reimburse the cost of your travel at 14 rupees per kilometer rate. And if you don't have a negative report, then don't worry, we will get you tested there only. It takes about 10 extra minutes. If you do have a negative report, then please bring it along with you, but we definitely need your COVID positive report. If you don't have a positive report, then you are unable to donate. Even if you have been positive, you need to bring your positive report along. And once you come here, we'll test you for your antibody levels. If your antibody levels are high enough, then we'll test you for other common diseases which can be transmitted by blood transfusion, like HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, malaria, syphilis. If everything is fine, then we will take your donation, give you some good breakfast there or good lunch refreshments, and you will also receive a plasma donor certificate, which is called the Gaurav Patra. And then you can go home after about 1.5 to 2 hours. The whole process takes about 2 hours. So please do come out and spend 2 hours for the benefit of someone. If you have any questions about plasma donation, anything else, we'll be very happy to answer them for you.
Yeah, hi, Dr. Sachin. We have our college principal, Dr. Hina Nandrajog, and she has a very genuine point. I hope ma'am is unmute. And please, she would like to ask a really very important question. And we have got little more questions as well. Ma'am, are you there?
I welcome all of you and thank you so much, especially to all the health workers who are sparing this time to create this awareness. Actually, my question has been answered. I was just sharing earlier that I got COVID in February, and after that in April I went to donate plasma, but then I was told that having born children I was not eligible, although I could donate blood, but I could not donate plasma. So I just wanted to know, is there any way that we who are willing to donate plasma, our plasma can be checked to see if it can be useful or not?
करता हूँ आपको फोन, एक मीटिंग में वो भी करता हूँ वापस। जी जी जी। Sorry ma'am, your question was whether your plasma can be tested for HLA, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it can be, but the problem is it's a very expensive and time-consuming process. It takes about 10,000 rupees in consumable costs, and takes about 5 days for the reports to come back. So the government doesn't want to invest so much time and money into this, because rightly so the government feels that we have more than 1 crore of recovered people all over India, right? So we should have enough eligible people to give plasma. But the problem is we are not coming forward to donate. Hats off to you. Thank you so much to you that even though you were not eligible, you did go and volunteer. But we need more young men and women to come forward, I think, because we do have enough people. I don't think we have to test and wait for 5 days for somebody, because by that time the patient who needs the plasma will no longer need it, right? Either he'll get better or he'll get so much worse that plasma will not be needed. So for plasma, point of caution that, donors is fine. You should all come and donate. For recipients, people rush to us at 3 o'clock in the night, that, somebody has said that, you need the plasma right now, otherwise patient will die by morning. That is not at all. Plasma is not an emergency treatment. It is not a Sanjeevani booty that you will give to somebody and that patient will suddenly come out of the ventilator. Usually by the time the patient is on ventilator, it is too late for that patient to get plasma. Plasma should be given early in the disease when the patient himself has not developed antibodies to the virus. By the time the patient has deteriorated and gone into ventilatory support with oxygen of 40, 50, that time the patient's own antibodies are working so heavily that if you give plasma, it can actually be even more dangerous and more harmful. So plasma is not meant for patients on ventilators or in late stage of disease after 8 to 10 days. It has to be given earlier on in the first week when the patient's oxygen is deteriorating, going down from say 90 to 85, 86, 87, and patient is having breathlessness, patient is needing increasing oxygen support. That is the time you give plasma, not when the patient is already on ventilator. Please do keep that in mind. Yeah. So if you test for plasma for 5 days and then the report comes back, usually by that time either the patient will be on ventilator or will have recovered completely. So the patient will not be requiring that plasma at all. Yeah, Rags, over to you now. If there are any other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
You can continue, Shuchin. There is also one more slide on what we do and how we do it.
Yeah. So if you can get to the next slide, I can speak about it.
Sure.
So this is the plasma donation management that we do. The recipients give us a digital request either on our website or on WhatsApp or on any social media that we monitor, Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. There are a lot of requests coming in. So our team monitors those requests and we take that request. Once the request is taken, our plasma recipient team calls the recipient family on the phone number that is given, and they understand what is the request, whether the request is currently valid or not, whether the plasma recipient's family has some donors already or not. If they already have donors, we align with them very quickly, tell them the entire process, explain to them, get them into the plasma bank, get the donation done, and then deliver the plasma immediately. If they don't have donors, then we try and look for voluntary donors who are willing to donate for someone who's not known to them or not a relative to them, like we are hoping that you all will come forward and do now. So then we align that recipient with these voluntary donors who are on the platform as well, and we get the plasma delivery. How do we find these voluntary donors? These voluntary donors can reach out to us anytime by either calling our helpline 1031 or going and registering themselves on www.delhifightscorona.in. So if they go and register, we will immediately call them back, check their eligibility. One of our doctors will talk to them, see if they are eligible to donate. Like simply, if you are pregnant, you cannot donate. So we'll immediately tell you that you are pregnant, you have been pregnant, so you cannot donate, but you can talk to other people and tell them to donate. And then we do the counseling and health check, and then we get them to the ILBS plasma bank in our own cars, and we ask donate the plasma there after getting their blood tests, etc. Everything. So this is how we do it. We arrange a cab pickup and drop and everything for you. So you don't need to do anything. You just need to give a call on 1031 and then sit back and relax, and we'll manage the end-to-end process for you from your doorstep back to your doorstep, including some delicious refreshments on the way.
Okay, I guess this actually covers a lot of questions. Dr. Sunita Jetli, one of the coordinator of our ANDC college, she would like to ask some question from Dr. Suchin. She is unmuted. Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Dr. Sachin and Raghavendra. I don't know whether you remember me or not, but I was associated with the Step 1 program when it got initiated in Delhi in March 2020. I was one of the volunteers, and I really want to express my deep gratitude to both of you, because starting with Step 1 initiated me into this corona fight and pandemic and helping from the people. So you were the inspirers to many people. A deep sense of gratitude for that. Secondly, I have 3 questions in mind. Recently, we were fighting with a case of a specific COVID patient who had phagocytosis, and he could not be administered to a hospital, and he required emergency help of a doctor. Now, we had 3 doctors on help, and what my question is something else. And one of them said you should put the person into an injectable methylprednisone. The other said no, first get the serum ferritin done and see the iron overload, etc., etc. And then there is no need if he's responding to the oral therapy. Now, and another doctor, third doctor came up, no, hospitalized. So what I want to say is, even in emergency times, doctors giving 3 different opinions, it becomes very difficult for a patient to understand as a layman, to what to do. First. Second, emergency doctors are not there. I was there in Step 1 for 3 months. Thanks for giving me a certificate for that also. But if in the night, if I call somebody for plasma or something, I've been troubling Dr. Meenu Bajaj a lot. I've been troubling the Step 1, Irfat, Tulika Anand, everybody I'm troubling. But at night at teams, we are not approaching people. We don't have rotatory duties like people, doctors on emergency, who just picks up the phone and says, okay, nahi hai, hum aage बढ़ जाएंगे. तो ये एक मुझे लाक्यूना लगा है कि दिन में तो मिलते हैं लोग वॉलंटियर्स, बट रात के समय अगर कोई प्रॉब्लम आ जाए 2 बजे, 2:30 बजे, 3 बजे, हमारे पास इमरजेंसी डॉक्टर्स ऑन ड्यूटी नहीं होते, जो फटाफट पिक करके करे हाँ प्लाज्मा है नहीं है, and it becomes very difficult if I straight tell Dr. Minu Bajaj ILBS please give me plasma. She'll also not be available at the night. That was my second concern. And third is more on the research basis. The antibodies in the plasma of a recovered patient, if I go by the ICMR, a lot of reports, they say plasma is no longer a solution to many of the COVID patients. So that doubt I really want to clear.
So on the I will answer the second question, which is on the emergency team. So we are having an emergency team, which consists of both doctors as well as a few nurses from All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Thankfully, they have agreed to also man the emergency lines throughout the night. So the way we do it is typically the call gets received by a non-medical person. And if it is an emergency situation, they on the same call conference the emergency team and who will do the triaging and decide what is the what needs to be done on a daily basis. Specifically, I think only in Delhi we handle roughly about 300 emergencies, or roughly around that. I think the numbers have kept on increasing over the last few weeks for obvious reasons that you are aware of. Yeah, so this is something that we have in place. We very much have in place, and it's a very, as you rightly said, it's a very essential part of dealing with the pandemic. Shuchin, I'll let you respond to both the other questions about early. Sure.
Point out, actually, we got connected to, I don't want to name the doctor, of an AIIMS doctor only, and whatever that doctor was, without saying anything, the statement was, I cannot say anything for a COVID patient. And especially from people from outside Delhi, if they are consulting, nobody is there. See, I am in Noida, it is Delhi NCR. Although my workplace is Delhi, people are not getting emergency helps. I don't know whether your system is placed in NCR or not.
No, so are you saying that somebody called the Step 1 helpline and they were not able to get help?
It was not Step 1 helpline. It was another.
Okay.
From
so we can only control what happens on the Step 1 helpline, ma'am, unfortunately.
So people outside Step 1, if they want to approach, sir?
They can call. They definitely can call the helpline. In Delhi, since we have tie-up with the Delhi government, we are able to get ambulance and get them shifted and things like that. But as you know, the ambulance situation is also very, very difficult in Delhi. So the time taken is longer compared to, for example, even a few weeks back, it was much easier for us. But it takes longer, much longer now.
So this
but people from across the country, people from across the country call us in places where we are able to close the loop because we are working locally there with the government. We close the loop. In other cases, we tell the people that this is the right thing that you should do, and let them find those resources for themselves, whether it is ambulance or medicines, or finding themselves a hospital bed. Dr. Shuchin, you can maybe answer the question about the plasma research, as well as 3 different doctors giving 3 different opinions, because we have recently taken a stance on home treatment. And you should,
So as Raghavendra ji said, ma'am, the thing is that in India, mostly doctors treat based on anecdotal evidence, on their own experiences. There are no fixed protocols. There's no written documentation to say that this will be done if this is there. So in India, we do it more as an art than a science. So the thing is that in Step 1 we have a very fixed
I think so. Ma'am, I'm not able to hear.
Your voice is cracking, I guess.
Yeah, Shuchin, your voice is cracking.
So I think we need to establish plasma. What was the? Is it better now? No.
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah.
Plasma question. The plasma question was, there is a lot of reports saying plasma doesn't work.
Yeah. So see, this is a very new coronavirus. There is a lot of data coming out on a daily basis on that. So most of the data that we see, except for steroids in ICU, none of the data is confirmatory for anything. So in fact, data on remdesivir is much sketchier than data for plasma. If you take my understanding of it, remdesivir has no data to back it at all. The outcomes of remdesivir in the WHO Solidarity trial, which was the biggest trial conducted on more than 12,000 patients across 30 countries by WHO. Remdesivir and HCQS had the same endpoints coming out. So WHO had actually removed remdesivir from its from its list of recognized drugs, not just for COVID, for any disease. So WHO does not recognize remdesivir as a drug for any disease. But plasma has had a lot of trials coming out which say that it is not useful, but an equal number of trials that come out that say it is useful. So ICMR started plasma therapy in India as a trial, see, as an off-label trial, but it converted it into open use only because they had some data, right? Otherwise, they would have said that it is not to be used at all. So if the government is running plasma banks and if the ICMR is recognizing it, and we are seeing it anecdotally as well in our hospitals, we see dramatic responses with plasma, provided, as I said, two things are considered very, very seriously. One, the timing of infusion of plasma. You cannot expect to give plasma to a person on ventilator with 50% saturation and expect that he will improve. He will not, for sure. So you need to give plasma to the right person at the right time. You have to select the case carefully. And second, you should ensure that the plasma itself has enough antibodies. What is happening, unfortunately, is that so many private plasma banks are mushrooming and so many hospitals are doing it private, that they just take plasma from anyone and give it to the patient without testing whether the plasma has enough antibodies. Right? At ILBS, we reject almost 60% of all donors who come in because they don't have enough antibodies. Prithviraj can vouch for it. If he's in the meeting, he sent some donors for his relatives, and all of them were rejected, all of them, because none of them had enough antibodies. The problem is you go to a private plasma bank, they don't even test. They take your plasma and give it for your patient, charge you money. You don't even know what is in the plasma. So that is the reason that some studies, the ICMR study that is the most famous, that says that plasma was not effective. If you read the fine lines in it, it says that 2/3 of the plasma they used did not have enough antibodies. Right?
Can
so
I just ask one relative question?
Is unfortunately not backed by big pharma. There is no big pharma backing it because it's a free treatment. Right. So,
Dr. Sachin, your voice is again not coming clear.
Rags, you can go ahead. If there is any
Sure.
Sir, for a layman, can you just highlight?
I request if we can take the questions towards the end so that we
yes, I totally agree. We have a separate session for this. So you can continue, Dr. Raghavendra, you can continue. Yeah, please.
Sure. So one of the key for us is we have a large network of volunteer doctors, and they speak various languages, which is actually helpful. And what is also happening is that people from who are speaking very rare languages like Khasi, Garo, Nagamese, Beri Urdu, they are all coming, and we are available. So because speaking the right language is extremely important. We are also supported by all the top doctor associations in the country. And as you know here, so we are mostly behind the scenes. Most of the work that we do is the only thing that you will see is the number that is given here. most of them don't mention step one, and that is and that's okay, because at the end of the day we are working to help the government, and we're not really looking for our name to be out there. And since we are a virtual platform, we get mostly thanks from citizens via WhatsApp messages and tweets. Our Twitter handle is filled with people thanking us for the support that we rendered to them. People send us WhatsApp messages, which is by far the biggest way by which people reach out to us to thank us. In very rare cases, we get cakes sent by people who are helped, or people write a poem like the one here. So we've also won several awards, but I'll kind of skip that. Some of them are global awards, like the Intel and Amazon Web Services Award, which is a global game changer. It's called as a Game Changer Award. It is one of the top awards for technology-led social initiatives in the world. I can quickly also play a couple of testimonials. Probably I should start with the testimonial from the Delhi CM. If you could hear it. Are you able to hear the sound?
Sound is not coming.
Yeah, so we have various such testimonials. We have one.
I think, Rags, you'll need to change the source of the sound from computer audio to the speakers.
Oh,
then you
okay.
can, yeah.
That's a setting on
Zoom.
Okay. I don't think I will be able to do that. So let's continue. It's okay. We'll skip this part. We have various testimonials from the government. But yeah, the main thing that we are actually looking for is also we need more volunteers. Compared to 1st of April, we ended yesterday with 7x the number of cases. On a daily basis, we are getting 70,000 new COVID positive patients whom we have to call out and counsel them, and if they're in emergency, help them. It's a very large number. There's a number across the country, and it's a very, very large number for us. So we are completely, no organization can work without enough people, and we are right now. We want more people. We definitely want more doctors. We also want people who are. We have a large army of medical and dental students who are helping us. They're extremely effective. It's also a great learning experience for them in public health specifically. So we would we are also looking to onboard medical students and dental students. We have also people who may be good at software development, product management, any other skill, because we have a large technology infrastructure, as well as we actually run the operations. We run these operations end to end, and we need people who are leaders, who can direct and command a large number of volunteers to work in a synchronized manner to deliver the end result for the citizens. In addition, we have something known as a tele warrior or a COVID tele warrior, which can be done by practically anyone. You could be someone you need to be someone with good communication skills. Sitting from home, you can actually guide and counsel people affected by COVID. It's something that will help you. Taking this training will help you also to guide your relatives and friends better, as well as, you know, if you have time, you should spend some time on to help general public who are calling these helplines, as well as who need help out there. With this, actually, we could, you know, we could take further questions. This is kind of the end of the slides that we had to cover today. As I said earlier, you know, this we are working with a large number of states and cities, but we also are having requests from other states and cities to expand. So we really need a lot more volunteers. Luckily, we have a tech system which can scale and which can take more volunteers. So please do inform all your friends who may be interested in volunteering. Since I understand there are a lot of professors and from colleges of Delhi University, please do encourage your students, and you know, you could actually formalize a formal program from your college to have a volunteering program, and take up some target of, for example, say 20,000 patients that you will reach and you will touch, and that will really help us. The next few months is going to be very hard for everyone in India, and we can only support each other, and we are providing a platform by which you can support a large number of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Raghavendra. I think that was precisely the objective of this program, that 4 different colleges came together for this cause, and we have 4 different coordinators for this. So the objective is to make this plasma donation at the mass level, and whatever the objectives, we will definitely coordinate and work on this. I think right now we have a couple of questions as well, I will, quickly would like to ask from you on behalf of different participants who has asked the questions. So there is one question that how I can, for example, there is a lot of pressure on, if I'm going to donate, plasma, I'll get infected. So how to cope up with this situation? So I think few words from your side will help making people understand that there is no need to kind of worry. Both of you, Raghavendra and Suchin.
Suchin, you want to take that?
Sorry, can I get the question again? Sorry.
So there are a lot of concerns, especially came ahead, and especially from the students, that there's a lot of concern that if I'm going for plasma donation, what if I'll get infected from COVID? So they need very positive motivational answer. Maybe I don't know what, but convince them by saying something.
So if you are going to get plasma, see, there are 3-4 things in this. So one is, of course, that if you are going to donate plasma, that means you are having antibodies yourself. You've just defeated COVID. So if you have enough antibodies to help other people, for sure you have enough antibodies to prevent a reinfection in your body. Second, reinfection rates all across the world have been shown to be less than 0.1%. Right? So if you already have had COVID, you are very, very unlikely to have it again. Third, from the spiritual angle, I think the number of blessings you get and the number of smiles you get from someone when you donate a plasma for their patient, I think will serve you very well from catching any other disease. It will protect you, not just COVID. And fourth, what I will tell you, what my mother used to tell me, that our hours in the hospitals are fixed, right? So better to run around in the hospitals for someone else, because God knows that how many hours you were in the hospital. So if you were there for someone else, it's fine. So that means your hours are okay. If your hours are spent in the hospital are okay, you will not need to spend the hours in the hospital for yourself. So better to run around in the hospital for somebody else rather than for yourself.
I think this was, lot of, very much convincing, I guess, and students would feel comfortable. There is one question: as a layman, what should be the level of antibodies to donate? This is again Dr. Sunita Jetli who wants to know about this.
More than 1/80, ma'am. The neutralizing antibodies are the important antibodies. Unfortunately, most laboratories don't test them at all. So you get very confusing levels of antibodies: 4.2, 5.0, 1.0, 13.8. Those are all irrelevant numbers. We are not concerned with them at all. What are important are your neutralizing antibodies. Your neutralizing antibodies should be more than 1/80. Unfortunately, again, it is a expensive test. So most of the private labs don't do it at all. But ILBS will do it before we take your plasma.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Suchin. There is another question from Kuheli Viswas, and she's asking that, she had got tested positive on 15th October 2020. So can she be able to donate plasma? So the time range,
So ILBS will not take it because ILBS takes 4 months maximum, or even if we are extending, then very outer limit is 6 months, not before that.
Okay.
But because see, ILBS gives your plasma for free, so all the tests are done for free, all the processing is done for free. So they want to limit their range to people who will be most likely successful at donating, right? Because once you come to us, we will run tests for the donor worth approximately 4,000-5,000 rupees in the initial phase. If you don't qualify, then we send you back. Right. So the ILBS plasma bank will not accept you, but you can go to a private plasma bank which charges money from the patient, and we can refer you to some good quality ones which will test your antibodies. If your antibodies are okay, they'll take the plasma, otherwise not. But ILBS will not accept it. There is a government plasma bank in Gurgaon that accepts. That's the Rotary Plasma Bank. So if you are in South Delhi or close to Gurgaon, you can tell us, we can arrange for your transport to Rotary Plasma Bank Gurgaon. That will accept you. But again, only as long as your antibodies are high enough.
Okay. So thank you for this information. I guess there is one, the question which was actually yesterday I was teaching my students, and this question came in that, when we are saying that the young generation, so this is from my side, that they are, they should come ahead and give donation. Potential, there is a difference in the potential, of the plasma, that the plasma which is donated by young population, than the people who are above 40 or something. So what is the, I mean, is there any study done or clear cut?
There's no difference as long as your antibody levels are good enough. Anyone from 18 to 60 can donate. That is not a problem. So,
okay. So
young people have more reserves, of course. So they are healthier always. So they should definitely come forward. But anybody from 18 to 60 can come and donate. We've had people fighting with us, people over 65, 66. They were fighting that, why don't you take my plasma? I'm fit enough, I'm here to donate. So we need more such people in the younger age group as well. We had a young child, we have his video also, Rags, you should have played that. We had a young child whose father was coming to donate. So both of them had been positive. Father was around 35, the child was around 13, 14. So he cried so much, he made such a mess in the house that, how can you leave without me? I want to go and donate plasma. He was only 13 years old, young boy. And he cried so much. We have a video of him. His father made it for us that, he's crying and he's not letting me come because he says, I also want to go and donate. So how can you leave without me?
We need such set of young people, actually. Yeah. Okay. I think we have got a lot of questions, covered. The one very important point, which again, from my side, or maybe so many people would be thinking that, what is the, the plasma, because I had this conversation with Samiran that, plasma, 1 dose of plasma is very effective in some cases of patients, so that the cylinder, the oxygen is not needed. Oxygen cylinder is not needed. So the chaos of cylinder can get solved if people are coming ahead. and donating plasma, and we will have sufficient plasma. Is it the case?
Yes, of course. So plasma helps you recover very quickly. As I said, if your oxygen is dipping and you are needing continuous oxygen support, if we give you plasma, then it helps you to recover quickly. We've seen that in many cases. So your oxygen requirement will decrease once you have had plasma. And donating plasma is very easy. It's a painless procedure, and we actually don't take any blood from you at all, right? The blood is filtered back and put back into your veins. So we just take out the water, that is the plasma, and it is so easy that you can come and do it every 2 weeks. Like everyone must know that once you've donated blood, we tell you that don't come and donate for 3 months now, right? Because you need the time to get it back up and everything. But plasma, you can come and donate every 2 weeks, because we are just taking out only small amount of water from your body, which gets replenished within an hour. So within an hour, your levels are fine. Another common myth people have is that if I have some antibodies and if I give the plasma, I'll give my antibodies to someone else, right? So I will have little lesser antibodies, so I may get my disease again or whatever. So that is not the case. Just think of your plasma as, right, it is being continuously produced and continuously replaced in the body. It is like a water which is continuously made in the body. As I said, if you donate plasma, within 1 hour you will have the same levels again. So your plasma is like a bucket full of water right now, right? And there is a tap of water that is continuously flowing into the bucket and refills it every 1 hour. And the tap has the chlorine, the tap water has the chlorine or the antibodies in it, right? So if we take a mug out of that bucket and give it to someone, the tap will still continue to flow and put chlorine into the bucket again, right? So it's not like your bucket will have no more chlorine if we take a mug out of that, because the tap will keep flowing in and filling it up again with water with the same level of chlorine. So it is an example like that. Don't worry about giving your antibodies away. It's not like the antibodies are gone. They will keep, every day they will produce new antibodies in the body.
Okay, thank you. I mean, such an informative and very important the point which you made, right now. Here, the one very important point I would like to ask again, that with respect to COVID only, that the people above 45, we have vaccination. People above 18 are also going to kind of get vaccination. What about the kids who are below 18, or let's say people who are 5 years, 10 years old? Because my question is that when they are going to get, because no matter that in family 4 people are getting injected and 2 kids are not, so again the problem is still there. So what is your what do you think on this, when it's going to come?
So see, Israel has already injected everyone above 16. So, right. So they have gotten everyone above 16 vaccinated. There are a lot of trials going on in various countries for above 12s also. No trial has yet started for below 12-year children, but it will start. See, vaccine production is a long-term process, usually takes 4, 5, 6, 10 years. But this has been made very quickly and is being used under emergency use authorization. So we are first of all seeing the people who have been part of trials, but now we have trials going on for pregnant women also. We have trials going on for children also. So it will take, I think, another 6-8 months, but we will have vaccines available for everybody very soon. The problem is right now we don't have enough for even the eligible people. So let us inject them first, and then we can put more. Yeah.
Okay. I think if I will.
I think Dr. Smita, Dr. Seema, Raghavendra is again on mute. So if you can unmute him.
Oh, okay. Just give me a moment. I'll just do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Raghavendra, you are there. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, yeah. Sorry, right? You're on mute. Yeah.
So I think we had another session actually from 1:30, but we will first take the questions and finish this. Then we'll continue to the next session. I will request everyone to stay, and we have 4 more wonderful speakers, and this is going to be a full discussion on from the perspective of survivors, and how it can be done on ground, and different set of questions will be taken from 4 different experts. But if I can ask one last question, which is very maybe something out of the box, or you can say that but little relevant, is that why Covishield and Covi vaccine, and two kind of vaccines are there, but Covishield is not very getting people are preferring Covaxin and not Covishield. So is there any problem? Because I have heard that the same vaccine has got banned. I mean, the same with a different name in Europe has banned it. Is this so? What is the situation? Why it's like the? Please give some insight on this, because this is really important. Because what I can give the input is that जो first vaccination का जो round हुआ था elderly people, they got vaccinated from the same vaccine which was Covishield, and which didn't create any kind of trouble in the old people. So why this has got banned, and why people are preferring only waiting for Covaxin and not Covishield? Please, this is, I want insight from your side. What is this?
Max, do you want to take that, or?
Well, actually, I think the first reason which I feel could be is that Covaxin is a made in India vaccine. It was invented in India. So I think there is a Indian pride associated with taking Covaxin.
Covishield is the same, I guess. Covishield is India.
Covishield is actually invented by AstraZeneca in UK. So, but it's made in India. So both are made in India, but yeah. I think the invented India plus made in India makes a difference, I guess. And the fact that the Prime Minister of the country took Covaxin, also probably a lot of people are more confident about that. The other scientific reason is that the dead virus. Of course, both are dead virus technologies, but there is the actual dead virus is used in Covaxin, whereas in case of Covishield, there is a vector-based technology which is a partial extract of a dead virus, which is I think Shuchin probably can explain it better, but some people tend to prefer that. But my message is to everyone is take the vaccine that you can get hold of, because both are equally effective. I think the difference in efficacy is 82% versus 85%, and all of this potentially will change, because as you all know, both vaccines have not gone through a full trial, right? Where after a full trial, maybe Covishield will be more effective than Covaxin, correct? It may come out. So please take the vaccine which is available for you for the first time. Because it really doesn't matter. Both are equally good vaccines. Both are made in India. So you should be proud that you are taking an Indian vaccine, if that matters to you. And both are available. So you should take whatever is available.
Okay, thank you.
I think of Dr. Seema should think of vaccines as seat belts, right? So if you wear a seat belt, you will definitely be saved from a serious injury in an accident. But seat belt itself can cause minor injuries, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in your car, do you know which brand of seat belt you are wearing now today? Nobody knows, right? So seat belt is seat belt. Just wear it. Just take the vaccine. Whatever brand is available is closest to your house. Just take it. All the vaccines are equally safe. They've gone through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. Everything that you hear about is anecdotal, right? It's all myths, because myths do not need to go through any trials. They can be circulated by anyone who has a WhatsApp on his phone, right? So you can just hear about a lot of things, but none of them have gone through any trials. The vaccines have gone through all possible trials. They are very safe. Don't worry about them. Just go and take the vaccine. Correct?
Okay, I think it's a great message for at the end. So the questions, I cannot see any questions. So I think I'll request people, if there is any question, then let me know quickly. Otherwise, we'll go to the next session. And I cannot see.
Thank you, Dr. Seema, and thank you, Prithviraj, for organizing
this.
And I really hope more people will come forward to donate plasma and also volunteer on step 1. It will be a wonderful experience where you will feel very, very nice because you have helped lots of people who are going through this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Seema. Thank you, Prithviraj, for organizing this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sachin. Thank you.
Bye.
It's lovely having you here. Okay, everyone. I think it's time for the next session. And the next session is basically, we have 4 different discussants, you can say. And let me take you all to the next session. I will request I'll just stop the recording.